I walked into the hotel's vast hall. I was Sloan, a lead AI engineer at Nebula Systems, a position I had built with sweat and tears, despite every dismissive word from my family. My eyes locked onto my brother Mason. He was standing on stage raising his glass as if he had already conquered the world. His voice boomed, filled with ridicule as he began his performance. 10 years ago, a friend here genuinely believed she could change the world with a few computer algorithms, but she was too slow in her logic and too stupid to truly grasp how AI technology works. Fortunately, she stuck to low-level tasks and couldn't ruin the market. It's pitiful, but that's the fate of a dreamer. The whole room erupted in laughter, and his smug, triumphant smile disgusted me. He had no idea that at the very moment he was using me as a punchline to validate his own supposed success, I was not just a senior engineer. I was the person holding all the digital evidence, every email, every forged signature, and every step of the $5 million venture capital fraud he had committed. I moved slowly through the crowd. My clutch bag didn't hold lipstick or a wallet. It contained an encrypted external drive. As I advanced and Mason saw me, the sister always called the useless one, his triumphant expression instantly froze, turning pale. He realized I was not there for a reconciliation. He realized this was a war, and he had lost before the first shot was fired. This was my professional revenge. Before we continue with the dramatic events of this story, please let me know what time and in which city or country you are watching so I can know how far my story has traveled. The truth about the Powell family's broken moral compass was laid bare 3 days before the reunion, not in a tearful confession, but in the cold, unfeeling glow of a computer screen. Mason the Golden Child was not just a failure. He was a cynical predator who viewed my intelligence as nothing more than a consumable asset. Frederick father and Janice mother were the architects of this dysfunction, their relentless validation of Mason's superficial promises, blinding them to the crime he was committing. This destructive dynamic was the preamble to the professional violation I discovered late one night in my high-rise apartment in downtown Boston. It was nearly 1 in the morning, and I was running a final meticulous check on my security profile, a mandatory step before my promotion to principal engineer at Nebula Systems. My attention snapped when the internal risk assessment platform, which I had co-designed, flared up with a non-critical but insistent red flag conflict of interest, unspecified IP risk. The system had flagged a name match, Sloan Powell, associated with Mason's latest pipe dream, a company called Vortex AI. The report detailed an official role, Chief Technology Officer, CTO, and co-founder. A cold, heavy lump formed in my stomach. Mason, a narcissistic, consummate liar, was utterly incapable of holding a CTO title. The only way my name could be attached was through manipulation. I bypassed the standard HR interface and accessed the public filings of the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) for Vortex AI. The document trail was sickeningly clear. A Series A funding round closed 6 months prior, boasting a capital raise of $5 million from respected venture capitalists. My picture, an old low-resolution headshot, was prominently featured next to Mason's on the pitch deck. Below my image, beneath the forged title, was a clear digital representation of my signature on the patent protection application for a supposed novel deep learning architecture. This wasn't just a lie. This was sophisticated, multi-layered financial fraud built upon identity theft, leveraging my hard-won professional integrity to ensnare serious money. I realized this was the culmination of their toxic family drama. They had always treated me as less than, but now they had commodified my existence. I felt a profound, chilling stillness. I switched terminals, diving into the actual technical documents referenced in the patent. As I suspected, the core technical claims were derived almost verbatim from a theoretical paper I had published 2 years earlier during my residency at MIT. Mason hadn't even bothered to rewrite the abstract. The accompanying digital signature on the patent PDF was clearly a bitmap image, a poor quality forgery whose metadata pointed to a generic document creation software, not a secure legal signing platform. The technical trail was sloppy, amateurish, yet legally damning. This confirmed my suspicion Mason, leveraging his parents' complete bias, and perhaps their collateral, had used my name as the sole legitimate technical asset to fool investors. He had essentially sold a ghost, and the ghost was me. I closed the screens, the cold rage settling into a sharp, focused determination. My revenge would not be a spectacle of tears. It would be a clinical, professional execution of justice, using the same technical precision and legal framework I used every day to dismantle his entire life. But first, I needed to know how deep the family's complicity went. I picked up the telephone. The phone screen displaying "Mom" lit up in the dark room. I answered immediately, refusing to allow myself the luxury of emotional preparation. My voice was level, almost unnervingly calm. Janice's mother answered, her tone immediately defensive. "Sloan, I know you found out about Vortex AI. You are making too big a deal out of this." "Dear," I cut straight to the core issue. "Mom, I need you to clarify this. Why is my name listed as CTO on the funding documents? Who signed the patent application?" A brief silence followed, heavy with implication, before she sighed dramatically, a sound I hadn't heard in years yet recognized instantly. "Oh, Sloan, you're overreacting again. Mason just needed a little help. You know, he's trying to build his career. You exaggerate everything." I pressed her, my composure unbreakable. "A little help, Mom. This is financial fraud and identity theft. He forged my digital signature on a sham patent to swindle $5 million from venture capitalists. I could face criminal prosecution for this, and so could he." Janice's defense mechanism immediately shifted from denial to gaslighting. "Don't use such big words, Sloan. Mason said you agreed to it. Anyway, you're just a senior AI engineer. That title doesn't affect you. It's Mason's lifeline. What do you lose? You're just a coder. You can find another job." That phrase, "you're just a coder," struck me with the force of every decade of dismissiveness. The professional title I had bled for reduced to a triviality. I clenched my jaw, the cold fury solidifying my resolve. "Mom, I never agreed to sign anything. I never allowed him to use my academic work. I have the evidence of the forged signature. The issue is no longer about family. The issue is the law." Suddenly, I heard a louder, angrier voice in the background. Frederick's father had snatched the phone. "Listen here, Sloan. Are you threatening your brother? Mason is the only hope this family has. Do you know how much he borrowed to keep Vortex AI afloat? You're his sister. You have to help your brother. We did everything for both of you. Mason says you're jealous. You've always been jealous of his success. You just need to withdraw your name. Say it was an administrative error and stay silent. We will resolve this in the family." I allowed myself a single bitter laugh. Family. This family died 10 years ago when you dismissed my AI dream and considered me a nobody with no future. While I was working 3 jobs just to pay rent in Boston, Mason was using family money to lease penthouses and brag. And now, when everything falls apart, you want to turn me into the scapegoat? Absolutely not. My father started yelling, his voice laced with pure panic. "You have to. We need this. We will lose everything." I listened to his frantic voice for another second, hearing not a father's plea, but a desperate man terrified of losing his financial facade. "I will not help the man who humiliated me publicly and nearly sent me to prison for fraud. I won't retract my name, Dad. I'm going to do the opposite." I hung up without another word, cutting the toxic cord cleanly. I knew I couldn't act alone. Immediately after that call, I drove to the Nebula Systems headquarters to meet Reese, the director of cybersecurity. His office, typically a calm, high-security fortress on the top floor, was where I knew I could find immediate professional help. I needed someone outside the toxic family orbit, someone who dealt only in facts and evidence. Reese wasn't just a colleague, he was the one person whose focus on logic matched mine, and whose silent support always anchored me. There was an unspoken connection, but that night only the case mattered. "Sloan, you look like you haven't slept in 3 days." "What happened?" Reese asked, his voice low, shutting the thick security door behind me. I placed the encrypted drive on his desk. "Mason." He used my name, my academic work, and my digital signature to forge a CTO role and secure $5 million in VC funding for his ghost company, Vortex AI. "I need your professional help, Reese. My name on that fraudulent patent puts Nebula's IP at risk, making this an internal security matter." Reese leaned back, running a hand over his short, neat hair. He understood the gravity instantly. $5 million in VC fraud linked to an IP claim under a lead engineer's name. That's an immediate internal risk. We'll greenlight the forensic investigation protocol tonight. But this is personal, Sloan. Are you prepared for what we might find? I am prepared for the truth, no matter how ugly it is, I confirmed. We spent the next 4 hours in the secure lab, a windowless room dedicated to deep-dive forensic analysis. Reese accessed public filings and the publicly available GitHub repositories associated with Vortex AI using Nebula's advanced tools. He was meticulously dismantling Mason's false image piece by piece. The only sound was the soft clicking of the keyboard and the gentle whirring of the server units. "Okay, look at this," Reese said, pointing at a terminal displaying lines of code. This is what Mason claimed was the core of his breakthrough AI algorithm. It's garbage code. It's barely functional Python script cobbled together from 5 different open-source projects. There's no proprietary IP here, no deep learning framework, no sophistication. This is what we call a technological hoax. He sold vaporware to the VCs. The technical clarity was an immense relief. Mason hadn't just stolen my name, he'd utterly failed to produce anything of substance. The residual sense of complicity I felt vanished entirely. Reese looked at me, not at the screen. "The fraud is technically clear. He created a facade, Sloan. Now we just need the paper trail to prove intent and confirm who did the actual forging." His words were the first genuine, unguarded human connection I'd had in days. It anchored me, reminding me that the battle was against his lies, not my worth. His trust was the only validation I truly needed. Our collaboration, although strictly professional, took place in the near silence of the secure lab, punctuated only by the soft clicking of the keyboard. We had already confirmed Mason's technological hoax. Now the objective was finding the smoking gun that proved intent and forgery beyond a reasonable doubt for the Securities and Exchange Commission. Reese, focused intensely on the metadata, suddenly stopped typing. "Sloan, I have it." It's buried deep in a third-party server log marked as "sent from Mason's personal account to an unnamed external assistant" a few days before the SEC filing date. He isolated the document. It wasn't the patent itself, but an internal email chain, the crucial link we needed. The email contained explicit instructions to a subordinate named Blair: "Use the digital asset I sent you, my old headshot and signature file, and insert it into the patent PDF. Make sure the metadata looks like it originated from the Miami office, not Boston, and process the final submission ASAP." This was the golden email. It established the chain of command, the deliberate act of forgery, and the clear intent to deceive, directly implicating Mason in federal fraud. I stared at the screen, the specific date of the email flashing brightly, June 15th, 2 years ago. The sheer arrogance of the timing struck me. "June 15th, I murmured. That was the week I was at the Zurich data center. Reese looked up, confused. "Zurich, your Nebula travel log shows a week-long project there. Why is that significant?" "It's not just Zurich. I explained, leaning closer. It was the specialized underground facility, the one with the specialized Faraday cage for signal integrity testing. No phones, no Wi-Fi, no connectivity whatsoever. Total isolation was mandated for maximum security integration. Nebula's strict logs can prove I was physically and digitally isolated thousands of miles away from any device that could have executed a digital signature in Miami. This was my absolute alibi. My professional dedication to data security now provided my irrefutable legal defense. No one in Miami could have remotely accessed me to authorize the signing. Reese smiled faintly, a genuine look of respect in his eyes. That kills his defense entirely, Sloan. The forged code, the directive email, and your airtight physical alibi. We have him. We need one more piece, I countered. Blair, Mason's former assistant. He fired her brutally a few months after the funding closed, likely to silence her. She is our key witness, the only person who can verbally confirm Mason's exact instructions and state that I was never consulted. I quickly pulled up Blair's LinkedIn profile. Her job history showed a rapid, unexplained termination. I needed to approach her delicately, appealing not to resentment, but to justice and professional ethics. It was a risk. Blair could refuse or be too scared. But she was the final human link in this chain of digital evidence. I reached for my phone, bypassing my personal contacts and opening a secure, encrypted messaging app. The final move required a calculated leap of faith. We returned to the Grand Hyatt Hotel. Mason was completely out of control, making a fool of himself before I even began. He was holding court in the center of the ballroom, detailing the imaginary Vortex AI acquisition talks, his voice booming with manufactured confidence. I stood silently near the main stage, an almost invisible figure waiting for my cue. My heart was not racing. It was cold and steady, precisely the way I needed it to be. Reese had messaged me 15 minutes prior, ready on site. The authorities were positioned strategically in the hotel's service corridors, awaiting the signal. I watched as Mason took a long, self-congratulatory sip of champagne, then pointed directly at me the moment of his final arrogant remark. And then there's Sloan, still working on coding something I imagine doesn't quite have the stomach for the big money game, does she? The room filled with polite, nervous laughter. That was the cue. I walked deliberately toward the stage, my heels clicking sharply on the polished floor, a sound that cut through the low murmur of the crowd. Mason saw me approach, and his smug smile wavered, replaced by a flicker of irritation. "Excuse me, Sloan, I'm addressing the room." I ignored him. I reached the podium where the reunion slideshow laptop was carelessly left unsecured, plugged into the massive projection screen. I smoothly lifted my small, specialized USB device, no bigger than a thumbnail, and inserted it into the laptop's auxiliary port. Within 3 seconds, the festive blue and gold reunion logo was replaced by stark, scrolling green text on a black background. The entire ballroom gasped as the massive screen transformed into a forensic display. "What the hell is this, Sloan? Get that off my screen," Mason yelled, stumbling toward the stage. I finally looked at him, my gaze utterly devoid of emotion. "It's the truth, Mason. It's the Vortex AI truth." I tapped a key, and the screen flashed 3 pieces of damning evidence in sequence. First, a magnified side-by-side comparison of the core AI algorithm from the Vortex patent versus the garbage code Reese had found, clearly showing the latter was merely 5 lines of open-source boilerplate script. Second, the golden email. Reese recovered Mason's explicit directive to Blair to insert the signature file and falsify the metadata to show a Miami IP. Third, a data log from Nebula Systems. Sloan Powell access granted Zurich Data Center June 13th, 20th. The dates exactly coincided with the fraudulent signing, providing the absolute alibi. As the crowd went silent, confused, and horrified, a different set of doors, the main entrance to the ballroom, burst open. 3 agents, 2 from the FBI's white-collar crime division, and 1 from the SEC's enforcement division strode purposefully toward the stage. Their presence instantly shattered the party atmosphere. They moved swiftly past the frozen attendees straight to Mason. One FBI agent holding a laminated photo spoke clearly over the silence. Mason Grant Powell, you are under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, and identity theft. You have the right to remain silent. Mason's face drained of all color. He looked straight at me, betrayal and pure terror in his eyes. I turned my back on the flashing stage lights and walked into the hallway where my parents were waiting, their faces pale and defeated. They had followed Mason, watching helplessly as the FBI agents placed him in handcuffs and escorted him out the service entrance. Frederick Father stepped forward first, his usual booming arrogance replaced by a frantic, high-pitched whine. "Sloan, what have you done? You betrayed your own brother. We can fix this. We can make this disappear." He grasped my arm, but I pulled it away instantly, the touch feeling repulsive. "Fix it. Dad Mason is being charged with multiple federal counts of fraud. What do you suggest? Bribing the SEC?" Janice's mother, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face, tried a different tactic, reverting instantly to the classic mother-daughter guilt trip. "Your brother is sick, Sloan. He made a mistake. If you just tell the agents you were confused about the dates, we can still save the family home. We leveraged everything for his Series B. The house is collateral. Think about us. Think about your poor mother." I looked at them, observing their desperation. They weren't grieving Mason's downfall. They were terrified of losing their status and their money. "You're still focused on the collateral, Mom. Not the fact that he risked my freedom with identity theft." Frederick, seeing the emotional route fail, went for the professional pressure point. "We spoke to our lawyer. They say if you publicly recant your claim that you were unaware and confirm you signed the documents, the charges could be reduced. We will pay you back, Sloan. We can offer you $200,000 right now to say you were a silent partner." I allowed a cold, hard laugh to escape. $200,000 to commit perjury for the man who called me too stupid to pursue my dreams. You fundamentally misunderstand the situation. There is nothing left to recant. I delivered the final crushing blow. When Mason's patent was forged in Miami, I was at the Nebula Systems data center in Zurich. Locked in a high-security Faraday cage, cut off from all digital and physical access for 7 days. Nebula's strict auditable logs prove I was physically impossible to reach, much less sign a document. The FBI has those logs now, corroborated by Blair's testimony that Mason ordered her to forge the signature. You see, Mom and Dad, I didn't just walk away from his fraud. I used my actual, verifiable professional career to prove his crime. There is no saving Mason, and there is no saving you. Frederick slumped against the wall, his face a mask of utter defeat. Janice let out a choked sob. I looked at them both. The enablers, the gaslighters, the architects of my brother's toxicity. You prioritized a lie over the truth and a fraudster over your own daughter. Today, I am cutting off the disease, not just the symptom. I took a deep, final breath. This is it. No contact. Don't call me. Don't email me. Don't come to my apartment. I am officially severing all ties. My revenge is not just his arrest. It is my absolute freedom from you both. I didn't wait for another word or another plea. I turned away, leaving the silent, defeated figures standing in the shadow of the emergency exit sign. 2 months later, I sat across from Reese at our regular coffee spot, the warm Boston afternoon sun streaming through the window. The chaos of the reunion was a distant, cold memory replaced by the quiet certainty of my new life. Mason's case moved swiftly. The combination of the garbage code analysis, Blair's testimony, and the irrefutable Zurich alibi led to a swift federal conviction. He was facing significant federal prison time for securities fraud and identity theft. The financial consequences were equally devastating and entirely predictable. The venture capitalists aggressively pursuing restitution had called in the collateral. Frederick father and Janice mother lost the family home, the very asset they had leveraged to sustain Mason's fraudulent life. They tried every desperate tactic to contact me, unrecognized numbers, letters sent to Nebula Systems, but my no-contact order was absolute, a clean surgical severance. My life, now fully untethered from their toxicity, felt expansive and quiet. I had moved apartments, transitioning from the high-rise with its constant reminder of my solitary professional climb to a quieter brownstone that felt like a true home. The paperwork for the principal engineer promotion went through yesterday, Reese said, smiling faintly, raising his coffee cup in a silent toast. The SEC investigation cleared your name entirely thanks to your diligence. You are officially untouchable. I met his gaze, feeling the easy, comfortable rhythm of our technical partnership slowly evolving into something deeper. There was no need for grand statements or dramatic gestures. Our relationship, like my professional integrity, was built on mutual trust and unshakable respect for the truth. Reese represented the opposite of my family: genuine support, clarity, and unwavering belief in my intellect. I finally allowed myself to accept that quiet, constant presence. The greatest lesson I carried forward was not just the exposure of Mason's crime, but the profound realization that my value was self-determined, not derived from or denied by my family's conditional approval. They called me just a coder, but my technical skill was the sword that cut through their financial lies and the shield that protected my freedom. The real revenge was the peace I found when I stopped letting their shallow opinion dictate my self-worth. If you are reading this, I want you to internalize this core value. Never let anyone convince you that your earned success is trivial or that their destructive ambition is your problem to solve. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they are the ones who started the fire. Your self-reliance, your intelligence, and your professional integrity are the only lasting foundations you need. Family does not always mean love. Sometimes it is the toxic cord you must cut to truly live. Thank you so much for reading my story and witnessing justice served. I would love to know your thoughts. What was the most satisfying moment of the downfall for you? Please drop a comment below and let's share our thoughts on this journey. If you enjoyed seeing this professional revenge story, please subscribe, like, and smash that share button so more people can find the courage to prioritize themselves.